So, the info evening about what we want to learn tonight, we want to look at when an addiction is actually an addiction. Then we also want to look at why many fail. Many in the person themselves, but also some courses that people take are sometimes not quite as successful, and how we can then really get into everyday life so that it has power accordingly. And why also a clear yes, such a dignified path out of addiction can look like. I should also show you that. Who is this seminar for? So, congratulations on coming at all. I think that's really, really great. The seminar is always for those who say, I no longer have it under control. I can't do it. I don't know. I've tried it, but I just can't manage it. And for all those who say I'm functioning, but somehow I notice I need a change. And not just like I'm moving to whatever the sun, but I need a change. I have to somehow manage to get it done, to stop doing what I've always done until now, what I've stupidly somehow acquired. And some really seem to be very strong, which is also good. Yes, so nothing to say against strength, which I always find quite interesting in my coachings. I have sometimes even world famous people sitting in my coaching sessions. And I personally find it so interesting and so beautiful when I realize, oh, they're just human too. They have their challenges, they have their strengths, but they also have their weaknesses. Of course, they're rarely allowed to show it or not at all. In a corporate context, at least in Europe, it's usually not that welcome for us to show our weaknesses. If someone then even shows their addiction, you'd be seen as someone who can't overcome anything and might not be recognized as a leader, and so on and so forth. We have so many distortions in our heads and thoughts in our heads about that. So, not just appearing strong, but actually being free. Being truly free, that is a possibility. You can be truly free. And that's a goal you can strive for and actually achieve in your life if you want to. And maybe for everyone, this seminar is also for those who say, I've already tried a few things, but I haven't been fully successful yet, haven't fought all my addictions. Someone asked me, can I join the seminar tonight even if I don't have an addiction? Yes, that's also possible. But at the same time, I have to say, I hope that we've recognized our addictions nonetheless. Yeah, because most people don't come here addiction free. So most people really do have an addiction. And maybe it's just a lifestyle and you think, I don't have an addiction anyway. But the biggest and best and most beautiful realization is when you say, wow, I can't do this. I can't get free. I'm not myself. Something is controlling me and I'm no longer the one in control. But that one thing or this issue is controlling me. Then I would say you're in exactly the right place here. Maybe you say, I'm only sitting here because I'm codependent. That could be it too. Or because you say, I'm attending this seminar for someone else because he or she is addicted. And I'd like to know if I can help him or her. So there are many ways to attend the seminar. I always greatly appreciate respect and appreciation. The seminar is truly free of charge. It doesn't cost you a cent, but it's still very valuable. Lots and lots of value packed in here. And this is the only seminar where you can also turn off your camera with a clear conscience if you want to. Thank you very much to everyone whose cameras are on. That way, I'm not just talking into the void. It needs a bit of reaction. Otherwise, it's like a blind presentation for me. So thank you very much to all who had the courage and strength to turn on the camera or will still do so. But of course, you can also leave your camera off for this seminar because it's very much associated with shame. So one person who registered also said, I'm signing up, but I want to remain discreet. I don't want to be mentioned. So that's also okay, absolutely okay. With this topic, discretion, since it's so shame-ridden, is also okay. I usually say at seminars, anyone can leave their camera off if they're in the sauna or just coming out of it. Yeah, you might know that phrase. Here at this seminar, it's different. You can leave it off if you say, hey, I want to stay a bit incognito, and that's also the case with this seminar, just like other seminars regarding addiction, where often a one-on-one coaching is conducted or only one client is accepted. Yeah, at these retreats and such, it's just totally understandable. It's just a very sensitive topic, and I want to respect that accordingly. I'd like to ask you to stay until the farewell. So you've reserved the time. You said, hey, I want to come to the seminar. So it would be super great if you really stay with me until the farewell. There's also a special bonus at the end that I've prepared. And if you, which I think is great, all have your cameras on, at least where I can see you, I see it already. Complete focus. That's absolute appreciation. So you're not scrolling the internet or answering emails or working on the side, but you're here. And that's important to me because I'm also here for you, right? It would be really nice if we could, so to speak, stick it out here together. For those who don't know me yet, some of you I haven't seen yet, at least, or I don't know by name yet. A brief overview of myself. I am one of the top speakers in Germany. Not everyone gets in there. There's a catalog top 100 speakers. There are also some super celebrities included, and I get to be one of them, which is really nice. They accepted me 3 years ago based on my expertise, especially from the teachings of Viktor Frankl. Maybe you've heard of it, this so called psychological school after him, which he named so called logotherapy. So, not speech therapy, but logotherapy. And that's why I was accepted there because of that. Maybe, Hermann Scherer. He says I'm even number one in Austria. I don't know about that. I can't judge that. I'll just say thanks to Hermann Scherer. He's a great coach and speaker in Germany who many, many people know. But apparently, I appear quite often in his seminars. I haven't seen it myself, but colleagues who were there reported at least. Yes, I'm a mentor. I have people, clients from business, sports, and medicine. I do executive coaching for CEOs. And I also accompany executives from very large companies to small and medium sized enterprises. I love the stage. I travel worldwide. I've spoken live to more than 130,000 people on over 2,400 stages. And some time ago, I also founded the LLI, the Leonard Leadership Institute. It's an institute where we train executives, entrepreneurs, and also employees in various different fields. Last year, or I should say the year before last, since we've already started 2026, I was an EQ Summit speaker in the USA in California. That was a very, very special invitation because not everyone gets to go there. Dr. Neil Nedley organizes it. He's very, very famous in America, as is Daniel Bynes, who has his own clinic. And among these speakers, I was even privileged to be the keynote speaker in 2024. Also, Dr. Schaffenberg, maybe you've heard of him, over 100 years old from the Blue Zone, a great scientist who was also there and participated as a speaker. Yes, on Proven Expert, I'm fortunate to enjoy a 100% recommendation rate. I'm also a part of the Global Speaker Federation. That is the largest speakers association in the world where speakers are admitted, or well, I'm also a member of the German Speaking Association, the so-called GSA. Yes, on thousands of stages around the world. That's nice. But what really inspires me isn't just being on thousands of stages. What really inspires me is that I get to speak to thousands of people and the message changes them. That's what inspires me. That's my fire, my motivation, or why I'm giving a lecture on Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Because I just know that there will be people among these 78 or 77 people who have registered. I know that one or two of them will live their lives differently from today on. And that is absolutely my motivation, my fire. It's just so gigantic. I experienced this in my early years. For those of you who have visited my website, already at 14, I was able to consciously, maybe even before that, I don't know, but consciously, at 14, I started changing the first life paths. Two people who were considering taking their own lives back then. And I will tried in every way I could to save lives here. And yes, I'm grateful that it was successful back then. And maybe we'll succeed tonight too, so that one or two of you will draw so much strength and say, wow, there's another way, or things can be different. That would be really wonderful. I've actually been on this journey with people and companies for 25 years now. I started my career in Switzerland back then. There, I supported people ranging from drug addicts to SAP employees in Bern and even the government. And that was totally exciting. I also got my first business assignments there. And since then, I've been able to take a look at how things are in these companies. And yes, it surprised me a lot at first, but by now it's become normal, at least for me, that addiction doesn't just stop at any of these floors, but rather that addictions go all the way up to the top floors. On the other hand, it's understandable, of course, because only humans sit there. Yes, well, even executives are only human and have needs and, of course, have temptations. And accordingly, they naturally also have weak points and can become just as addicted as any of us. Yes, and I think it's very nice when they sit there and open up and can show themselves fully as human beings in coaching and can say, Mr. Leonard, I can't get out of this. I don't know what to do next. What do we do about this point? Yes, and when we can go into that very specifically, there is a variety of addictions. It's incredible how a person can become addicted. A huge company in Austria, the wife came to one of my seminars and she spoke to me after the seminar. And I knew who she was, and I also knew who her husband was. And she said, my husband is addicted. Every week he has to go to prostitutes. Yes, so you just have to imagine that pain. Yes, so when you have a husband who is so influential, has such a position, and you as a wife know exactly that your husband is addicted and visits prostitutes every week. So that is really intense for both. I also actually met a man in Switzerland who worked for a large bank there, was also an executive, was even the CEO of his department. The department, I won't name the company now. It's really massive, large, very famous in Switzerland. And he said, Kris, it's like an addiction. And I didn't even think such an addiction existed, but at least he defined it that way. He said, I always have to go to a fortune teller after a certain time. I say, what? You go to a fortune teller? He says, yes, it's really like an addiction. So I go there, she tells me the future, and then I'm somehow happy. I go home, then it somehow fades away, and then it comes back, and then I have to go again. Yes, we don't even want to think about how much money he's already left there. So this addiction was unknown to me until then. I also had a contact in Switzerland. She was a teacher at a primary school, well, an elementary school. And she said herself that she has an addiction to sports and cycling. Yeah, so she said quite personally, I can't even keep still anymore. It's really bad. I finish school and then I get on my bike and then I ride, but not just a little bit for balance or for the sport or just to get some exercise, but she said it's a real addiction. Yeah, of course she did, because I see Kathy Julia, Corinthia, and so on. Of course, she took part in the Ironman and was quite proud. But ultimately, and many people from Corinthia also reported that when I held a seminar there, many who also take part in the Ironman don't do it just for the sport, but many of them are also addicted to sports. So you can also become addicted in that area. And also Dr. Scharfenberg, with whom I conducted a personal interview. You'll see it on my YouTube channel too, who is over 100 years old, still a top scientist. He travels all over the world, spoke to over 100,000 people in Madagascar the year before last, spoke. So really a renowned doctor still, sorry, not a doctor, but a scientist who still in the field of nutrition and lifestyle got his doctorate from Loma Linda and is really in high demand still. Because of his age, of course, very interesting, and his humor too, but he also said too little. Sport is unhealthy. It's really unhealthy. Yeah, so it's really unhealthy. But too much sport, he told me personally, is just as unhealthy. So you need the middle ground somewhere. And unfortunately, she didn't have that middle ground. In Switzerland, I also had a lecture in Zurich. I can still remember it well. Then after the lecture, a young man came up and said, I'm getting married soon, but I'm addicted. And then I say, what is your addiction? He says, yeah, pornography. I say, oh, that's not good, because that can damage your marriage extremely, even leading to the point that quite a few partnerships have also broken up. So even there, you can have the most beautiful wife in the world, but if someone is addicted to pornography, it's really a blatant addiction. Viktor Frankl also wrote quite a bit about it. He took this famous image where mice had the possibility to get, well, an artificial erection, so to speak, by pressing a button. Some of you who may have read logotherapeutic books by Viktor Frankl, the book The Will to Meaning, it's listed there. There he writes that these mice gratified themselves up to 65,000 times a day. Unbelievable, right? 65,000 times a day. Crazy. Yeah, so they were completely consumed by the addiction and they just left their food untouched. And they weren't interested in their female partners anymore either. So addiction can go so far that it just takes over everything and dominates your entire life. I met a doctor who said, I can't stop working at all. I'm a workaholic. I'm addicted to work. And that doesn't just affect doctors, it can affect other people too. Anyone can become a workaholic. It's not just about having a lot to do, but it's also something where you see that people only feel comfortable when they're working, neglecting their own health, their own family, neglecting sports, exercise, fresh air, and nature. Someone in one of my courses said, my goal for 2026 is to go out into nature at least once a week. I said, you what? Once? No, I'm not letting that slide. Once a day is okay, but not once a week. So it's really, really important, right? That we have a work life balance there too. Back in my youth, I grew up in Stuttgart. A young girl said something I'll never forget. It sounds totally stupid, but I can't put my violin down. I neglect the violin. I mean, I neglect my life for the violin. She even had a bruise here. It looked like a quadruple hickey, but it was from holding the violin because she played the violin so much. And she was just in high school. She wasn't even studying music. She was somehow, I'd never heard of it, addicted to the violin, that such a thing exists. Apparently so. Now, a funny story from Dr. Elizabeth Lucas, the most famous student of Viktor Frankl, who is still alive today. Maybe you've seen her on TV or on YouTube. She's written over 100 books by now. She's over 80. I think she must be 84 or 85 now, right? She told me back then, because I was able to study with her for 7 years, that she once had a client who was addicted to boots. So you'd almost have to say boots plus women. It was also a kind of sex addiction, and everywhere he saw a boot, including a woman, something went wrong in his brain. So, really, sex addiction paired with boots. It was an interesting conversation. I'd never heard anything like that in my life either. I had a client who was undergoing his professional training in logotherapy in order to become a certified coach. During his training, he confided in me and shared that he was facing a significant problem in his life. Specifically, he admitted that he was addicted to casinos. So here there was this strong urge to go to the casino regularly and often. And yes, of course, the desire to win. I win something, but unfortunately also with very, very high losses. I remember I also worked on a project for a few years in Starnberg, and maybe you've been to Starnberg before. In Starnberg, you always see the newest and the biggest cars. It's one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Germany. And I was quite surprised when I was in Starnberg that there are also these little machines where you just do this. So you go into a restaurant and they sometimes have them set up like that. You know this lever? And then I think to myself, that can't be right. People are sitting there whose shoes cost at least 300 euros. And it looks like a game and fun and joy, but that's also an addiction. You can very easily become addicted there too. It's so crazy. And you can take it even further with Facebook. You know, the wealthiest people in the world forbid their own children from using Facebook, TikTok, social media, Instagram. So the ones who invented it, they don't allow their children to use it because it's simply addictive. These are built in tools that deliberately lead our brains, our emotions into addiction. And if you're not addicted and you go on Instagram, go on Facebook, go on TikTok, then you notice if you're very sensitive, after a few minutes, 2, 3 minutes, that suddenly there's a pull effect. It wants to pull you in like that. You know that? When it wants to pull you in like that, after a few minutes, 2, 3 minutes, and then turn it off immediately or don't go in at all. Because it's just built that way quite deliberately by those who invented it, how to simply make people addicted. Then there are also other addictions like TV addiction, or also, which I was quite surprised by, computer addiction in adults. You'd think it affects children and young people. No, computer addiction in adults and executives. They sit there, PlayStation, usually not even with the children, but really alone, sitting there with the PlayStation. And everything is neglected. No, that's a PlayStation addiction. And then, of course, it goes through the whole range of drugs that are available, which are then taken right up to the highest levels of companies. So there's drugs. Really, we'll go into that a bit more in the presentation later on. No exception. Unfortunately, more today, right? So, what is an addiction? And so, when is an addiction an addiction? An addiction is an addiction from the moment you can no longer decide. So, you want to decide, but the behavior suddenly controls you. It's like when control is taken over by the system. Yes, you could say, well, you want to quit, or someone says, oh, I want to do less now. Yeah, but you just can't manage it permanently. Many people I have helped to become smoke free, yeah, they told me, yes, I have already tried before, going from 30 to 20 and then from 20 to 10. And then it went back up to 20 to 30 again, yeah. This cutting back, that's usually a system that isn't so successful. Maybe one or two people manage it, but yeah. Well, at least with my clients, most of my clients weren't really very successful with this cutting back. It also has a bit to do with time. You need more and more time, a higher amount, the higher intensity. Yes, so I'll also talk about Florian later on. You might have seen it before, perhaps in those quick 1 minute talks or in some of the videos that I have presented to you. Florian himself in Switzerland, who was then addicted to heroin and cocaine, he didn't start with that. Yeah, so that wasn't his gateway drug. Well, I don't think anyone starts with something like that, right? He said he just took marijuana back then. Yeah, and that was okay. Now, even allowed in many countries, yeah. Before, it was mostly only allowed in Holland. Now it's also allowed in Germany and allowed in other countries. And he said, that's the gateway drug for the later, harder stuff. And the person who says, I won't get addicted to marijuana, uh, yeah, but we'll look at the brain later, what a marijuana brain looks like. And the crazy thing is, which you might have already heard or maybe heard in your training, if you were to train as a coach, that marijuana can trigger psychoses. So a person can be perfectly healthy in their psyche, maybe has predispositions to a psychosis, takes marijuana and the psychosis comes out. And once you've had a psychosis, at least I don't know it any other way, then you're dependent on being properly adjusted with medication. And then people are properly adjusted with medication, and then they say, oh, I'm doing fine again anyway. And what do? They stop taking the medication, and then they have the whole symptoms of psychosis again. And that is terrible. Because you can't cognitively control these psychoses, yeah. We do a lot in the coaching field, right? Mental strength and mindset modulation and so on. But you're just helpless with psychoses. You can't get through to the brain there. So that's why marijuana isn't really a toy, you know? We'll look at the brain later, but also the psychoses that are triggered. And it's the gateway drug for stronger drugs, Florian told me, who unfortunately ended up on heroin and cocaine, right? Exactly, that you need more. So that's a very important point where you realize, aha, I need more. And then you fall back on it to regulate feelings, right? So you say, okay, I have stress now, I have emptiness, I have fear, I have pressure, I'm just, yeah. Whether it's the cigarette now, they do have an effect. It's not like they're only negative and only bad and only kill us. And it's written on the pack. But unfortunately, what makes us addicted is that they also provide a benefit. Suddenly I'm calmer. Suddenly I'm more balanced, right? That's the stupid thing. That's where our brain then says, wow, this is great. I want to have that again, though. Can you give me that again? And then, yeah, okay, I'll give it to you one more time. And then you get it. And then the brain says, yeah, totally cool. Can I have that again? And then it says, well, if you don't give it to me again, there'll be trouble. And then these withdrawal symptoms come along. And then you say, okay, you get it one more time. Yeah, and then you're already back in the addiction, right? So these emotional regulations, that's the deceptive part, the mega deceptive part. And then we have these withdrawal symptoms and the behavior, you feel restless, irritable, right? Or empty. This feeling irritable, this, oh, I'm not at my center at all. And every day is just bad. And all the other people and another day like this, yeah? That's just also, those are very strong withdrawal symptoms that you might not even recognize at first. Or this few, actually, I'd most like to die. Yeah, like this weird, I'm not depressed, but somehow I'd most like to die, yeah? That can also be such a symptom, such an effect of the point that you're moving in the area of addiction. Yeah, you keep going even though you know the negative consequences. We all know that. I mean, the packs, the cigarette packs are covered with the most terrible pictures, but people just don't care anymore because they just want the effect. The hiding, the justifying, and being ashamed. So that's always the biggest sign, right? So I also learned that from Florian when I accompanied him in Switzerland. It was quite intense and long term, but he said all addictions normally arise. Yeah, ultimately, either in society and in the community. Yeah, there are these recognized addictive substances that you just take together, right? But the addiction then continues, and I have to keep everything a secret. I have to hide everything. Yes, in his addiction, it was, of course, very strong and very clear, too, because if I get drugs now, the illegal drugs, I have to do it secretly. Yes, how do I get money now? I have to do it secretly. How do I take it? I have to do it secretly. How do I live the drug? I have to do it secretly. Yes, so as I said, the whole thing was actually suddenly always just secret, right? And as soon as you do something, so to speak, that your parents, your wife, your husband, your children, your boss, your manager, your employees, your colleagues are not allowed to know about, that would be a sign, aha, could it be that I am also moving into the area of addiction? Very rarely, yes. Very rarely does it happen that others approach you. It could be that someone is very close to you, a very good friend, such a good friend who observes you, who knows you. No, 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 certainly not. Not me. Me, an alcoholic? No, I have it completely under control. Yes, so I have it completely under control. Certainly not me. Yes, then you're just not ready yet. Yes, the one who already recognizes that they have an addiction is far along. For example, a client of mine who says, I've had this issue for a while, and I write down every day how much I drink. And I know I'm in an addiction, and I know I want to get out of it. Then you are already very far along. Yes, so that's already incredibly far along when you've already reached that point, when you no longer hide it and can admit it to yourself. Because that's somehow the deceptive thing about addiction, that for most people it's really in the blind spot. You know that. You've probably heard of it, right? Everyone else sees it, but I don't see it, or everyone else doesn't see it and I don't see it either, right? Um, but this area of addiction often remains in the blind spot for a long time. We just don't want to admit to ourselves that I could be addicted. And it always costs something. We will also look at how much it costs in terms of money, but it always costs something. It costs relationships, it costs health, it costs performance, it costs self esteem. In a video, I talked about it, if you still remember, maybe you saw it, about that one doctor who was sober for 4 days in the clinic. Then he set his duty days so that he could be at home for 3 days in a row. Then he really drank, got drunk from morning to night, a complete alcoholic. And then back to the clinic sober, 4 days didn't drink anything, nothing at all, right? And then another 3 days of complete drinking. And that over a huge period of time, what did it cost him? It cost him a great deal. It definitely cost him the relationship with his family, because during those days when he was at home and the wife was a client of mine, she told me that one morning at breakfast, he held a sharp knife to my throat and wanted to kill me. And I thought my time had come. He only has to press a little harder and I'm dead. And she said, I endured it for a long time, for decades. The son grew up with it. But when that happened, I knew a line had been crossed, and that from now on, I'm no longer safe living in the same household as him. And it was incredibly difficult. You can't imagine how many jars she filled with her tears. But she said, for the safety of my son and for the safety of myself, I had to separate from him. So it costs you relationships eventually. Another client who works at the Chamber of Labor shared her concerns with me. She said, my husband smokes marijuana, and lately he seems to have lost interest in our relationship. He is not as attentive or affectionate as he used to be, and I feel like we are growing apart. The sexual intimacy between us is also declining, which makes me feel even more distant from him. I am worried about what this means for our future together, and I am not sure if his marijuana use is the cause, but it is something that has been bothering me for a while now. And he's so apathetic, always so absent, never there. It costs the relationship. So the relationship theme, yes, another lady, she had 4 daughters. The husband was an alcoholic. She was a pastor, just imagine, a Protestant pastor. Wow, when you coach people like that, you hear stories you don't read in books. Everything that goes on and everything that happens. And there too, unfortunately, the relationship eventually fell apart. And the whole family, all 4 daughters and her, even the husband suffered too. Everyone suffered, and some are still suffering today, with serious consequences that the daughters are still dealing with in their psyche, trying to somehow cope with it. And especially regarding addiction and codependency, I was able to learn and listen a great deal from clients when they shared what happened. And the husband, who then didn't take on certain tasks in the family, and she already had so much on her plate. She was a full-time pastor, had the 4 children, had to drive them back and forth, go to different schools, teach, religious education, then the church services, then the husband's tasks that he no longer did. He should have done it, a referral here and do this, that. And then she said, I had to do that too, do it and more. And suddenly she did more and even more, right? And she said, I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. And then you end up in burnout yourself. And those are just the kinds of difficulties. Yeah. And then codependency is usually like, how can I help my partner without the addiction being noticed anywhere? Yeah. So that means if he's lying in a ditch somewhere, then I go look for him. Yeah. No one must notice. So the neighbors, the workplace, no one can notice that he is an alcoholic. And then you are completely in codependency. Yeah. So codependency is similar to addiction. So it's something very tough because it's emotionally tough. Yeah. Because you already carry so much, you also carry the addiction of your partner. So there's a lot at stake. So in short, a habit becomes an addiction when it no longer serves life, but life is organized around it, or even shorter, addiction begins where freedom ends. When you realize I don't have any freedom anymore, I can't get to it anymore, I can't control it anymore, yeah. But as soon as you realize it and say, hey, I need help, wow, that's already a huge step. Yeah, and it's a huge step. Really good. Some of you might know Dr. Amen. It's like Amen in church. He's a famous doctor in America. He runs several clinics. Over 160,000 brain scans that he has performed. There are the famous Amen clinics. There are also some books that have been translated into German. Certainly very worthwhile. Let me show you what a brain looks like. Yeah, you have the underside of the brain scanned. And the top side are always like 3-dimensional scans of people, 160,000 of them, yeah. And totally interesting. You can see it here. Smoked marijuana for 4 years. So up here you have the brain, underside, and the top side of the brain. This is what it looks like healthy, and this is also what it looks like healthy, right? Even this underside has a few wrinkles in it, but here clearly marijuana attacks the brain. So it's really aggressive. Here we have someone who has already smoked for 4 years. He is 22 years old. But this one here is 17, already brain damage, totally visible in the brain scan. Then we have opiates here, also the underside here. It's clearly affected. You can even partly see through to the top surface. Do you see that? The holes that are in there. And then we have cocaine. Yeah, that puts some holes in the brain. Who has used cocaine for 4 years. Here we have someone who has consumed alcohol for 10 years. It looks like Swiss cheese. You can already see through to the underside. Yes, that's also one of the hardest addictive substances there is. Alcohol. That's why it was banned for a long time. You know the whole history, right? Alcohol prohibition and so on. And then they did it in secret, etc. Right? There are movies about it and all sorts of things. But I really have to say, also from the interviews I've conducted, including with clinics in Austria, yeah, that specialize in alcohol detox, you really have to say It's one of the hardest things to truly get free from. Why? Because it just puts so many holes in your brain. Yeah. And that's our tool, our brain. And when your frontal lobe looks like Swiss cheese, where the seat of personality is, the seat of will, the seat of decision making, well, you can imagine if that area is weakened. You can still do a lot with little brain power. So it's not like we can't achieve much with less brain function. There are great studies on that too. But you can imagine when it's full of holes, yeah, full of holes, then it's really a massive challenge. And then we have meth here. Another drug, for someone who's taken it for 3 years, we see Swiss cheese symptoms here too. So I think it's a great image because it just symbolizes for us, hey, addictions attack my brain, whether it's marijuana, smoking, opiates, cocaine, alcohol, or meth. But take a look at this here. If someone says, look, I'm not addicted at all, I only drink 2 glasses of wine every day, that's healthy, right? Well, the healthy brain would look like this, and a moderate drinker, their brain doesn't look good anymore either. So it's already moving into the realm of addictive behavior. You can look at the images again and download them on Amen Clinics or even on his own Facebook page. Watch YouTube videos, buy books. You can research a bit more yourself. I also found this interesting. I wanted to show you this too. Grateful versus hateful. Yes, it's not just these terrible addictive substances, it's also about gratitude. You know, I have a very, well, let's say successful program, my Happiness Mind program, and there we practice being happy. And here you see the underside of the brain, perfectly normal. That's what the underside of the brain looks like for someone who is healthy and grateful. Versus someone who is full of hate. So it's not just evil alcohol, evil tobacco, evil marijuana that damages our brain, but also our thinking. Our thinking, unfortunately, also attacks our brain. Yes, those are some shocking results from Dr. Amen from America. I wanted to share that with you too. Of course, there are also some very extreme cases. I have to take a quick look at those with you tonight too. That doesn't mean every case has to go in that direction. But there are also extreme cases, and we have to look at those too. I don't know, you know her from the radio. She's been on the radio for decades, right? Whitney Houston, that powerful voice, I mean, how she hits those high notes or did, and how she came back down. I mean, a singer, just incredible. But if you look at the autobiography, then I say, oh man, seriously, did it have to be? At just 48 years old, tragically dead in the bathtub in her own home. Cocaine, sleeping pills, medication. So famous. And that's just something that I keep realizing over and over again. Even with the super actors, they reach a level where everyone knows them, where they can't just walk around in public anymore, and where they suddenly realize, man, I always thought when I get there, life will be great. And then they feel an incredible emptiness. You can't imagine this emptiness. If you've never experienced such emptiness, then you can't imagine how empty one can be. That's the most disgusting feeling a human being can possibly have. There's no more disgusting feeling than absolute emptiness. And when you experience that, you want to numb it somehow, fill it up or something else. That's why actors are also very tempted to turn to addictive substances in that situation. Here in Upper Austria, there was a tragic event this year. A young girl, just 16 years old, sadly passed away in the year 2026. My girls are older, but through a friend, she knew this friend personally. We heard about it that the 16-year-old girl died of a drug overdose. Did she plan it? I'd say certainly not. It was just fun. It was a party. I've taken something a few times before, so I'll just take it again. And then suddenly it's pure stuff because the stuff is usually sold dirty, so it's mixed with other substances that aren't as expensive. And then someone mixes in less and suddenly your body can't handle it. And then you get this excess that you keep reading about in the newspaper. So it's not that people inject too much or take too much, but it's the problem with the mixture. Suddenly they get what's called pure stuff. 16 years old. So our girls and our girls' friends and the many young people who knew her are shocked. Shocked. Or an Audi manager in Bavaria, I spoke with a rehab center there about a year and a half ago. And the head of the rehab center in southern Germany said she was with us for a year, 1 year. And they have equine therapy and they have workshop therapy and they have occupational therapy and many other great therapies they offer in southern Germany. He said she was with us for a year. And the very first weekend after she got back home, she drank so much. She drank so much that she passed away that same weekend. So these are really tough stories, yeah, that really, well, I don't know about you, but it breaks my heart because I just feel that every person is so special and so precious with or without addiction. Yes. So you as a human being are just so precious in my eyes and so valuable. It is something so special that your heart beats and that you breathe and that you have thoughts. But then you say, yeah, but Christy, I don't see myself that way at all. Yeah, that's what addiction does too. Addiction destroys our self esteem. I'm getting into that topic right here now. But still, I just want to say you are special with or without addiction. With addiction, the problem is that it accumulates, it gathers, it sucks. Like a magnet, the negativity sucks itself onto you. Yeah. It's usually very expensive. It costs time, money, health, and so on. But what's really intense now is this blow to your self-esteem? Yeah. And especially to your self-efficacy. Today, I listened to a talk by a coach who is based in America. And he says he does cold water therapy every single day. But he says he doesn't do it just because it's healthy and because it's great. You might know, I've been doing that for over 30 years too. I just find it so fantastic, this cold water therapy. But he said he does it for self-efficacy, yeah. I shower or take, well, he takes a cold bath every day. Cold bath, warm bath, cold bath, warm bath. That's quite easy for him in Florida. And he just says, now I'm doing cold, that's it, period, end of story. And that strengthens his self-efficacy, yeah. Not like, well, maybe not today and today this and blah, blah, blah. But self-efficacy. So hydrotherapy can strengthen our self-efficacy, yeah. And self-efficacy, when you're in an addiction, wow, it gets super weakened, yeah. Because you've planned it so many times and you've planned the other thing too. Yeah, I can't do it. I don't want to. I'll put it off and so on, yeah. And that's a huge problem, self-efficacy, yeah. And some people then have such a huge disgust for themselves too, because they say, I've promised it so many times now and I wanted to. And some are maybe even religious and have prayed or read the Bible and asked God and so on. And then they have difficulty believing in themselves, in their own sincerity or in God's power or whatever. It's such a disgust for oneself, right? And the problem is, well, we have many tools, that are in my Happiness Mind program. Some of you are in the Happiness Mind program, but many of you are not. But I have an incredible number of tools. But you know what? With an addiction, some tools don't help at all because the addiction is so dominant. It's like a cleaning rag that just wipes away all the good stuff. And then you try to use them, the tools, and then you then take these massive boxing punches from the addiction, right? And that's just intense. And then there's endless self-reproach. And then self-love also fades away. And when self-love fades, oh boy, right? And they say, well, I'm not even allowed to love myself, etc. But that's a misconception. When self-love fades, you can't love others anymore either. You're just constantly criticizing, because this is wrong and that is good, not good. And he is to blame. And he did it this way and he did it that way. And yes, so this self-love, it really should be preserved. But you often can't maintain it when it comes to addiction. So I remember our Bofrost driver who came by once. You know them too, right? The frozen products advertised door to door, and they change all the time, the Bofrost drivers. And we once had a Bofrost driver who suddenly started a conversation at the door, and he said, I never wanted to be like my father, and he talked for an hour. I hope he closed the door of his car so the frozen products didn't get warm, but he said, well, his father was an alcoholic and he swore to himself, I will never be like my father. And he said, I woke up one day and I was exactly like my father. But well, he'd beaten his wife, the kids, they moved out, yeah, and so on and so forth. Then I realized, wow, I have to change my life. So If you say, I will never be like that, then you'll become exactly like that because you have some kind of goal. You have the goal, and the psyche cannot distinguish between I won't be like that and I will be like that. If you say, I don't want to hit the tree, I don't want to hit the tree, I don't want to hit the tree, what do you think you're going to hit? I remember that from back then. I was a new rider, not a car driver, but someone who was just starting to learn how to ride a bicycle for the very first time. And I was out and about in Stuttgart with my parents. Schlossgarten, that's what it was called then. Some of you know it, some are from Germany. I was in the Schlossgarten in Stuttgart, and then there were these kinds of bridges. The main roads run underneath, near the train station. The Stuttgart train station has also become very famous by now. And there were these bridges. We rode up them like that. What do you think I had in my head? Brake, and whatever you do, don't hit the post, don't hit the post. I looked at the thing and said, don't hit it. Every time, you know what I did? Boom, hit that little post. But it was enough. It knocked me off balance and I was on the ground. Yeah, but I learned from that. Yeah, so what you don't want to encounter, you do because you're thinking about it. And so you say, if I don't want to end up like that, that's not a good role model. Yeah. So the costs. So if we take a look at what a tobacco addiction costs me, right? Cigarettes, 7 to 8 euros per pack, 210 to 240 euros per month. That's about 2.5 to 3,000. If we project that over 10 years, we're at 30,000. Without medical costs, medication, or missed work, reduced performance, and so on and so forth, right? So my brother was in the military back then, after his physical with the paratroopers. And he said among the paratroopers, many were still smokers in the first week, but by the second week, no one was. They just had to run so much. And they simply realized, well, you can't do that while smoking. They all became smoke-free, right? Okay, then alcohol addiction, right? That's also, there are statistics on how much you spend per day when you're addicted to alcohol, 10 to 25 euros a day. Per month, that would be 300 to 750 euros. Per year, that's 3.5 to 9,000 euros. If you list that over 10 years, you're at 40,000 to 90,000. Crazy, right? You don't even notice it at first. Yeah, that's really crazy. Without sick leave, drop in performance, conflicts, separation, and so on. That or any loss of driver's license, fines, liver disease, hospital stays. That's not even included. Just looking at what the expenses themselves cost you. Or the casino, that's really extreme. Yeah, it's uncontrollable. It starts out so small. I'm only going with 50 euros anyway. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll win something. And then suddenly you're at 500 euros, 2,000 euros per month. Yeah, and those affected then lose between 10,000 and 200,000 within just a few years. And the debts, the loans, the lies, loss of trust, existential crises, personal bankruptcy, and so on, the whole thing just takes off, right? And then something I didn't really know about, but you can see the behavior very clearly because these online bets and sports bets and whatever other bets there are, you can buy them in almost any regular grocery store, whether you go to a Spar or wherever. Yeah, many of these stores already sell it right in front of you. Yeah. You spend 10 to 100 euros here, then suddenly 300 to 3,000 euros that people spend a month. And then over the years, they're at 30 to 300,000. Yeah. Always with this high emotional dependency from, I almost won, or I won, but I can't find my ticket anymore. Yeah, naturally, something like that. Coupled with lack of sleep and loss of concentration. And then we have drug addiction, prescription drugs and painkillers, 50 to 300 euros. And over the years, again, over 10 years. Calculated, it's about 6,000 to 30,000. Then you have doctor hopping addictions, withdrawal issues, damaged nervous system, memory, and emotions. And drug dependency must only be resolved with a doctor or psychiatrist. That's something very important. Yes. So we also heard very clearly from Dr. Nedley, who has also specialized in drug dependency in America. Very intense medications that are also prescribed for depression in America. It could be that it's similar for us here in Europe. But he said, these medications, you can never get off of them. And above all, do not stop taking them alone. So he trains other doctors to teach them how to get patients off of them again. So that's a science in itself. It takes over a year and a half with Dr. Neil Nedley. The doctors have to go there themselves and work with him for a year and a half. Just imagine that. It's a science of its own that isn't otherwise taught at universities, how I can stop medications again, right? So it's really intense, really intense. So addictions cost you per addiction about 30,000 euros on average over 10 years. The problem is that an addiction rarely comes alone. We'll look at that in a moment. The so-called overlooked bill. Yes, so you have that very strongly. Lost joy of life. Yes, you become apathetic that this beautiful, cozy feeling, I'm alive, right? That gets lost. So many opportunities that you miss because you're never attentive, because you're never there. Yes, because you're always driven, always, phew, where can I get something? Where can I do that? Where can I let go? Where can I vent? And so on. Relationships, we've already spoken about inner freedom too. And above all years, yes. I mean, some of you want to live 80 years. Some of you want to live 100 years. Some of you want to live 120. Yes. It's also a bit about attitude, I'd say, and lifestyle. Yes. But years that are simply lost, that's bad. Yes. Becoming free takes courage, clearly. Staying addicted just costs a quality life, or maybe even your life. But in any case, a quality life, yes. It's much, much nicer. Everyone I've been able to accompany in my past years is just, yeah, I don't know how to say it, like a springtime yet. It's glorious, it's beautiful, free, yes, being truly free. And then, of course, there are incredible costs for the state and for the system. Maybe you say, I don't care, but somehow we are part of the system, right? So I can't really not care at all. In Germany, we have several participants from Germany with us today. It's about 16 to 20 billion. Can you imagine that? Healthcare costs per year due to addiction. Billions. And then we have it listed here. Sick pay, disability, early retirement, social welfare, unemployment benefits, people's drop in performance. But the biggest thing is the loss of productivity. That's where the biggest costs come from, sick leave. So present but not productive, then early retirement, premature deaths during working age. And then the statistics say that 40 to 60% of all addiction costs arise here, alcohol alone 30 to 40 billion in Germany. Crazy, right? And then the justice system comes into play too. It's a huge apparatus because of alcohol addiction, isn't it? Police operations, courts, prison costs, traffic accidents under the influence, drug-related crime. I've spoken with several police officers. We also have one in the family. And he told us as well that almost all the offenses he knows of are under the influence of drugs or also alcohol. Over 80%. So it's several billions. Then, of course, we have the child and family system, foster care for children, youth welfare, trauma follow-up costs, intergenerational burden, and so on. It's just never ending. So if we summarize that, we have alcohol at around 60 billion, we have tobacco at around 100 billion, follow-up damage, loss of production, and we have illegal drugs at around 10 billion. So you see, wow, just these two here are 160 billion, what it costs the state. So addiction is no longer an individual problem. Addiction is one of the most expensive invisible bills of a state. Intense, right? That's why we're doing something good for the state tonight with our seminar here. What does addiction cost the company? Some of you here are company owners. Some of you are executives in companies. The companies pay for it too, of course. I've listed that for Germany and for Austria and for Switzerland. We also have some Swiss people among us. This is an approximate calculation, total costs for a company. So it's 60 to 70 billion per year. Of that, companies bear about 35 to 45 billion. So what does that mean? It's listed in absenteeism, productivity losses, errors, accidents, and lack of quality, turnover, and new hires. So we've calculated in the statistics a total loss per employee of 25 to 80,000 annually. Austria is similar, between 20 and 65,000, and in Switzerland it even goes up to 120,000. The company bears that. So that then has to be cushioned accordingly. What's really intense, as the statisticians show, is that 70 to 80% of those affected are not unemployed, but right in the job, right in the middle of it. Executives are affected above average by addictive behavior, stress, alcohol, medication. And then it shows up in performance fluctuations, irritability, withdrawal, decision errors. So that means we have sick leave, we have turnover, we have accident and error costs. And then we have something very important again. Addiction is not a marginal issue. Addiction is a massive competitive disadvantage, and prevention, one of the most profitable investments for companies in D, A, and CH. So if I were a company owner and I had several employees working for me, this particular topic would definitely be extremely important to me, both for the success of my business and the well-being of my team. So eyes closed and push through. The main thing is we make a profit. Somehow I wouldn't see my leak in the boat. It's worth looking there too and conducting seminars there as well. I give keynote speeches on this topic in companies and also internal training courses for addiction prevention, mental strength, and resilience, which are totally interesting and also have a long-term effect, and thus this leak is stopped. One addiction, one problem. No, an addiction rarely comes alone. Not that the one addiction already causes so much negative impact here, but there's almost always a twin involved. So whoever has tried it, whoever wants to quit smoking, well, they probably also had to deal with a second addiction at the same time. They hold on tight. Some are nodding here. They know each other well. Smoking and coffee. Those are two addictions that couple together and are quite strong as a pair. Gaming and pornography, also not rarely traveling alone. Or workaholism and sleeping pills. If someone has to work so much here, then they have to push first. Mostly coffee, Red Bull, where I have like 30 coffees in one Red Bull. By the way, incredibly many deaths from Red Bull. You should read up on that a bit because the system just can't handle it anymore. Yeah. But then if I push myself like that, then I have to somehow push myself down too, and that's done with sleeping pills. So you see, an addiction rarely comes alone. The addiction seeks the addiction. Yeah, the second addiction, that's why they come in a twin team. And then they're twice as strong because I suddenly have to fight two addictions at the same time. That is not easy. It is possible, but not easy. This is also meant to be a real intense encouragement tonight on our journey. The special story of Florian. I always find it so beautiful. Every negative can also turn into a positive. I don't know how many hundreds, thousands of people I've already told this story to, and how many people it has already given hope to, the story of Florian. I met Florian in Switzerland. I think it was in Chur. You know them, Migros and Coop in Switzerland. I was there in Düdingen in the canton of Fribourg between Bern and Lausanne, a canton. And Florian spoke to me. He came straight up to me and said, "What are you doing there?" I said, "Look, I'm doing an opinion poll here. I'd like to know what the Swiss people think. Can I take part in that?" "Yes, I'd be happy to do that." Then we went through this opinion poll. At some point, the good fellow sat down on the floor. And I don't like it when we're not at eye level, so I sat down too. It was a bit strange sitting on the floor at the shopping center in the Coop in Switzerland. But that was his comfortable sort of sitting position that he had. And then I went through the opinion poll with him. And then at the end, he said something quite extraordinary. I don't even know how he came up with it exactly. But he said, "Kris, can you pray for me?" Like, yeah, I can do that. Now, I say, oh, not only is the sitting extraordinary, but sitting in the canton of Fribourg in Düdingen at the Coop supermarket and then praying as well. That is very strange. But I prayed with him and closed my eyes, folded my hands and said a short prayer for him. And then he took my hands during the prayer like this and squeezed them tight. That's when I realized he was really serious. After the prayer, he says, "Kris, can you visit me?" I say, "Yes, where would you like that?" Yes, you'll come visit me. Maybe you can help me a little." Then I thought to myself, help a little. I think he needs quite a lot of help. Because heroin and cocaine, you recognize that quickly. Well, I said, "Yes, if you want, I can visit you." Then he gave me the address, right? I visited him then, rang the doorbell. There are those peepholes, right? You see, someone's there, he looks. And then he left again. Then I said, oh, Florian, he's probably having a bad day today. Next time I came back, I rang the bell. Then he came again, peephole, and didn't open up. I thought, oh, maybe he's going through withdrawal right now, has no desire at all to open up. And the third time I came, and then he opened the door for me just a little bit, just a crack. And we talked to each other. And next week I came back, and the door was open, just a crack. Just a crack. Next week, just a crack. The week after, like this. He sat on one side of the door. I sat on the other side of the door. Quite an extraordinary coaching. At some point after weeks, he said, Kris, don't you want to come in? I said, yeah, sure, you joker. I'd love to come in. Much more comfortable than sitting outside. And so the coaching continued inside. We talked about everything about God and the world. And it was so exciting, really so exciting, because I could study this addiction so much, get to know it so much, that it helped me incredibly with all the other coachings later on. His father told me, who worked in the government, please don't go to so much trouble over Florian. He's going to die anyway. I was shocked. He said, you have no hope at all. I said, I do, but the probability is just higher. That someone who, after 10 years of heroin and cocaine, taking it for so long, it's just more likely that he dies instead of getting out. Well, he did get out. It was not easy. It was really hard. But I think I've really done just about everything with him, almost as if it was some kind of unintentional case study, something that happened behind the scenes, so to speak, without us even realizing it at the time. To be amazed, to understand what needs to happen for someone to get out of that. Of course, with decisions, struggle, and a socialization program and everything that goes with it, right? But it is possible. And I always tell everyone I've supported so far, if Florian managed to get out after 10 years of heroin and cocaine, then you can do it too. He was later in the socialization program in the Bernese Oberland and then went on to study in Basel. And since then, he's been living addiction-free in the Basel area, yes? That's really good. When I visited him in the socialization program after he'd gone through 2 cold turkey withdrawals in the canton of Fribourg, cold turkey means taking nothing for a month, no substitution, nothing. You're sweating blood there. That's the most terrible place in the world you can be, at least I think so. I haven't heard of a more terrible place yet. People are screaming. You think your heart's going to jump out when you walk into the clinic. It's really awful. It's bad. I can't imagine anything worse. But after 2 cold turkey withdrawals, after he made it, he went to the socialization program in the Bernese Oberland and spent a year there learning how to live again, yes. Because addiction also makes us unlearn things. Then I asked him, what was the most important thing that you learned there? He said, it was honesty, yes. Everything is always secret, secret, secret. We had to learn honesty for once. And then we had to learn punctuality and politeness and punctuality and discipline. And we had to learn so much because we unlearned all of that in addiction. All the things you unlearn, and I think, wow, my life doesn't work that well, but to think you can unlearn things in addiction, right? So what I've always taken away from the support, there were 1,000 things, but to put it briefly, you are always valuable. It takes support, it takes honesty, but it's not about how much strength you have. Florian had no strength, zero. Zero. It's not about how much strength you have. That's something very important. Because in many seminars you hear, yes, you have to decide and you have to have strength and then you have to see it through and blah, 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 blah. And then it goes wrong. That can't work. It hasn't worked so far, yes. The strength to overcome comes from the team that supports you, of course, plus God, yes. Without that, I'd say, especially with those tough things like alcohol and so on, it doesn't work without him anyway. But if we can add that extra help, it's amazing, amazing, absolutely amazing. But you have to understand it's not about how much strength you have. Yes, it's really about the strength to overcome coming from the team that supports you. That's very, very, very important, yes. And that's why there are definitely several options. Option number 1 is I continue the path alone. So I keep fighting with many what ifs, would have, should have, could have, must have someday. Or option 2 is we walk the path together and I take you by the hand. Because that's what I can do, yes. Take you by the hand together with my team, and then we'll see what can happen then. That means this get free your way out of addiction is also a way out of guilt. Yeah, it's so good when you get a clean slate again. Out of remorse, yeah, no longer having to hide. So I can be fully myself now without being judged. So the worst judgment is always self judgment, yeah? You say, well, it's much worse when others judge me. You can't control that, but you can control self judgment. And if you get out of that, that's obviously great, yeah? I really say that's into freedom. So, how can you say it, this freedom, if you maybe haven't felt or sensed it for a long time? It's so untainted, yeah, like a baby. It's so really wow. It's so without tons, without burden. It's, yeah, a bit like riding a Vespa, yeah. Maybe for the women among us with hair down, no idea, yeah, how I should describe it. Freedom. I wouldn't say it's like standing at the ship's railing. I wouldn't say that, but do you get what I mean? It's like it's that feeling. It doesn't pull me down and I can breathe. It's not on my chest, it's not on my back, it's not on my head. It's not in my jaw where I'm clenching. I'm just free. I lie down and wake up. Wow, I'm doing well. I have a clear conscience. Yeah. That's really living. That's somehow lightness, finally free, finally you finally living. Yeah. That's it. That what we 2026, or at least my goal is, for all who want to go this way, 2026 to arrive there completely everything. Yeah. So no longer eyes closed and oh no, and there's still something else. And oh, my attic and my basement and maybe the pantry. Oh no, when I think of that, I'll never make it. But my goal is to really arrive there with you and say, hey, 2026, December, at the latest, we celebrate freedom together in all areas. Yeah. And that's obviously really beautiful. Yeah. At the latest. Yeah. This big happiness mind fire, I'll call it, right? That's why I said, okay, I don't want to offer an eternally long, never ending course, but say, hey, we want to start with the worst addictions, whatever you bring, except for drug addiction, because you really need a doctor who knows their stuff for that. But with these addictions, maybe it's pornography addiction, maybe it's alcohol addiction, maybe it's smoking, maybe it's TV, maybe it's gambling, maybe it's social media. I don't know. Yeah. But I've created a course now, where we get out in 6 weeks, tutto completi, together as a group. Yeah. One session per week, 45 to 60 minutes are planned. If we need longer sometime, you'll plan for a bit longer. So that as well. But as a rule, we have 45 to 60 minutes, where we have a very clear structure, clear guidance, where I work in height psychology, following Viktor Frankl and Elizabeth Lucas and my own findings, where I've been able to guide people for the last 25 years to get out of very difficult situations. We have various modules there that we address very personally, not just a lecture, but I listen to the group and work through it like a group coaching session. Some of you have already been in group coaching sessions. It's mega effective because you suddenly realize, wow, I'm not the only one. I always thought me, only me. No, it's not just you. There are several in the exact same boat as you are. So what addiction really is, so I am more than module number 1. I am not my addiction and guilt, shame dissolve, inner relief in this module, because most people identify themselves, yeah, saying I am an addict. Oops, yeah. So not I have an addiction, but I am an addict. Most have such a strong identification because most addictions have been there for over 20 years. Just imagine, most addictions have lasted over 20 years. For 20 years, people haven't addressed it. So intense, right? We've simply lived with this addiction for 20 years. Normally, if we had an addiction, we'd have to say after a few weeks, a few months at the latest, let's get rid of it now, right? But that's the deceptive part, because the whole defense system is so compromised, right? That we just live with it for 20 years. Most live with it for at least 20 years. Just imagine that. We've calculated what 10 years costs. So, module number 1. If you don't attend it, if you don't get to know it, if you don't experience it in depth, then I can promise you one thing: you won't get out of your hole at all. Because people start with, I have to become free. I have to somehow become free. I have to somehow manage it. With that energy, you can't even get the normal stuff done. Yeah. And now you want to achieve something supernatural too? No. We have to start differently somehow. Yeah. So we can't approach the starting point like that. That's why there's very important preparation here in module 1 of your psyche, your mental state, your personality state, your character, your attitude. So we're starting in a completely different way. And we learn that in module 1. How do I get started, right? Module 2, we look at triggers. Yeah, so really intense triggers because you will be triggered. Yes, there are patterns, there are automatisms. And I'll tell you one thing, if you recognize emotional triggers in time, and we also learn how I can recognize that in time, yeah, then you step out of the vicious cycle of short term relief, right? We look closely at it, we name it, and then we tame it. Yes, so in English, it's already like that. Name it and tame it. That means recognize and disempower. Module 2, really powerful. And then module number 3 is the turning point. I love that. We're already building up, building up. So those among us who ride and maybe even work with Icelandic horses, if I want to tolt, I first build up. We don't just say now tolt. Instead, it's built up. And then the horse stretches and gathers itself in the back and raises its neck, taking the form of the tolt. It has more power, the rider has more power, and it formats itself into a tolt. Tolt is a gait in Icelandic horsemanship that most riders are unfamiliar with because they only know walk, canter, trot. But there is also the tolt. And you have to prepare for it, a tolt like that. And that's it. We prepare modules 1 and 2. And well, now it comes almost perfectly cast. The turning point where you say, wow, I always struggled so much. And why is it so easy now? That's the turning point. I love the turning point. So we really go into abundance. We go back to the heart of freedom, into this abundance that we suddenly feel in our hearts because I can't come out of lack. I can't come out of lack and have huge results. I have to be in abundance so that I can then make decisions. So that's really the absolute best thing. And then when we see this freedom, we naturally want to. Module number 4, also learning stability in everyday life and relapse safety, understanding relapse mechanisms, dealing with pressure, stress, rejection. Yes, rejection. You wouldn't believe what rejection does to you in life. Yes, I have a thick elephant skin anyway. Many addictions come from rejection, that people reject you, don't like you, hate you, write emails against you, talk behind your back, try everything. That's often we have to deal with it. Learn, and if we can't do it, then our turning point is useless. And then the whole buildup is useless. That means we have to learn that. Healthy rituals, healthy structure, relapse prevention. So here it's about relapse, relapse, relapse prevention. Safety, module 4. This is a super important topic. I'll show you why in a moment. And then we have living free, module 5. That's so beautiful. You can breathe well there. There you are. The task, I mean, being able to enjoy again too. Often people have this, but I'm not allowed to enjoy. Now, I haven't enjoyed for 10, 15 years. Many years without a vacation and so on and so forth. I'm not allowed to do anything good for myself. I'm allowed to do something good for myself. So living free, enjoying freedom is the focus here. Living life with dignity. Oh, that's something beautiful. So really coming back to innocence. You become like a blank slate as if it had never been there, right? So growth instead of perfection. Perfection is an absolute addiction accelerator. Get rid of that. We won't live like that anymore. And then module 6 is a big party. I can only say, yeah, it's a big party. Yeah, you can invite anyone you want. Partners, children, parents, whatever. But we'll celebrate anyway. Even if no one comes, we'll celebrate as a group. Right? That's so important. I'll explain why celebrating is so vital in module 6. The highlights, the reviews, the community we have where we've gone through this together. So that's something very, very, very important. Those are the 6 modules. I've told you a lot about social proof tonight and also in the videos you've seen. I've changed the names now, of course, whether it's Petra who called. She cried bitterly before saying, yeah, I can't do it. I've been in it so long. Small children, married and so on. My husband says, you have to go to the clinic now. Yeah, you must go to the clinic. Yeah, but I don't want to. I can do it alone, but she didn't make it. Ooh, tough struggle, cried bitterly. Yeah, 20 years in addiction. And then I thought, look, this is a very tough addiction we're entering and want to get free from. Very intense, very hard. We certainly need help from above too, no question. But let's dive in, see what happens. And then the call, 50 days alcohol free. You can't imagine it. You just can't imagine it. So there was a dance of joy, right? So that's so beautiful. Yeah, she also said she'll come to Austria sometime. And then we'll celebrate again. So there'll be a big party here in Austria too. Armin, who said, I've become smoke free, or Hugo, who said, I've become casino free. Claudia, who said, my whole trunk, so my whole car there, how do you say it? Trunk is full of food. She said that once during a health retreat, yeah, I have my whole trunk full of sweets, but she had an eating addiction, so a sugar addiction. Yeah. We managed to get away from the sweets. Yeah. Victoria, who worked or works for the government, yeah, she said, I have a cheese addiction. Yeah, there's all sorts of things. Yeah. Cheese addiction. Yeah. Yeah. So really ordered a big cheese platter in the evening. Yeah. Gained weight accordingly. If you do that a few times and love cheese platters plus the bathtub, yeah. Ooh, we got her free from the cheese too. Whether a top athlete, entrepreneur, executive, or just a human being, addiction makes no distinctions. Do you know what else makes no distinctions? Freedom. Just as people on all levels can become addicted, people on all levels can also become free again. Yeah. That's just super brilliant. What are people actually willing to pay for this? I did an analysis today, and there are various retreats on Mallorca. I thought, I'm not seeing this right. I have to copy this for you. 88,000 for 2 weeks. But they recommend staying for 4 weeks and leaving 158,000 there. I'm like, what? Those are some prices. Then I looked further, a second retreat in Mallorca, so 45,000 for 1 week. But they recommend that you stay for 28 days. Oh, that's 4 times 45,000. Then I checked what the Swiss actually charge, for those good retreats where you can get free. I looked into it even more. Kusnak Practice charges 117,000 Swiss francs. I said, no way, 117,000 Swiss francs. The cheapest one here is around 27,000. The most expensive, Caldir Clinic, 500,000, 500,000 Swiss francs for 1 month. So the Swiss are upping the ante. Let's see if the Germans are cheaper. I found a pretty good retreat there. You pay 1,200 per day. They recommend staying for 30 days, so about 30,000. I found another one. That one has a different daily rate. They don't list anything on their website, but review portals report a daily rate of 570 and they recommend a 30-day stay. That's approximately 17,000 euros. So you see, it's crazy, huh? Austrian prices. We have some Austrians among us. I found one there too. The one that has a place in Germany also has one in Austria, 1,000 euros per day. They also recommend staying, of course, so about 30,000 in Austria, or I found another one, 50,000. So you'll pay, give or take, if you visit a private clinic like that, between 17,000, which would be very cheap, or 250,000 per week. Crazy, right? Yes. On one hand, it's crazy. On the other hand, when you consider how much damage you're doing to your life, they've calculated that too, of course, how much it costs you, what it costs your family, and so on. That's why they say, okay, we can really set the price like that. And of course, in their eyes, it's also justified accordingly, right? But the problem, and this is the biggest problem, isn't the money at all. The biggest problem, I conducted several interviews with top management in Austria who have many, many guests and patients. He told me in the interview that over 90% of our patients relapse, regardless of whether they stay with us for 6, 8, or 12 weeks. Intense, right? He also said that what's really needed are programs that start at home. That's important, yeah, because otherwise you're in an ideal world in paradise. I feel so good and I'm not going to do that now. Wow, great, right? We have that too, Jochen, a program where we're in Mallorca for a week, then we all feel good. But the most important thing is integration into everyday life. Integration into everyday life. I spoke with a facility in southern Germany, where I also gave several training programs to the executives and the employees on how they can communicate better, take better care of their psyche, mental resilience, psychological hygiene, and so on. He said to me, unfortunately, we have no long-term success at all. They work in the field of alcohol addiction. Almost all of them relapse once they're back home. And then I said, so what's your motivation then, right? And he said, we're simply there for the moment. Yes, that's also important, but it's intense. Yeah, I mean, it's really intense. And so we already notice, yeah, so if we want to start the journey here together or individually, however it may be, then we have a certain climb ahead and we'll have to, so to speak, throw ourselves into the mud accordingly. But the most beautiful thing is when you arrive at the top. right? Some eyes are lighting up because they know, yes, there is the possibility to go up. Yes, I've already managed that in a few areas of my life. Yes, I can also manage that in the addiction I'm still in. And that's why my 6 week get free seminar, yeah, one live session per week, 60 to 90 minutes, depending on the need, is discreet and protected. And I take you by the hand. Yeah, so you don't have to sit alone somehow and watch something somewhere that might set you free, but I take you by the hand. The good thing is it's also affordable for you. But the most important thing is, what is my attitude? Do you have a positive but? A positive but is I am addicted, but I will be free. I am addicted. Maybe your parents or siblings were also addicted, but I am the first one to become free again. Yes, that's the positive but. The negative but is when you say, I want to, but I don't know if I'll make it. I want to, but I'm ashamed. I'm really drawn to it, but maybe I can make it on my own after all. That would be the negative but. Yeah, where I simply destroy the positive with a negative but. I think what I've seen in recent decades is to finally make a decision and say, hey, the moment won't come on its own. The best moment will never be there either. Yeah, but I'm saying a big fat now and yes to myself, and then also to the program and say, hey, now I'm going, now I'm starting. 2026, the year of freedom. That's why my price. So, first of all, so that no negative but can arise at all, right? If we switch it off completely, it's also not 158,000 like on Mallorca or 30 to 90,000, which your addiction would probably cost, or 25,000, which individual coaching would cost. No, that's the good news. Here's the breakdown of it. Yes, my expertise costs something if you book it with me individually. The 6 modules are also super valuable. I couldn't do without the WhatsApp group. Everyone who's been in a power WhatsApp group like that, where we all reach a goal together, yeah, that has huge value. Some are already nodding here, but take a look at it. I did this very deliberately, very deliberately. The people who saw it before said, Kris, are you sure you want to offer it so cheaply? I say yes, because everyone should be able to afford it. Everyone. For entrepreneurs, a bit more, because as executives, most companies can write that off as a training seminar for mental resilience too. Yes, but this is your price here. If you say, hey, 6 weeks, I'm in from January 26th, it goes back up to a normal price or a more normal price. And then next time I offer it again, the price increase will naturally be there too. But you can take your time very calmly, yeah, without pressure or anything, very calmly until January 25th, 11:59 p.m. Don't miss the seconds. Sign up if you say, yes, I'd be interested in that. So that could be an option for me, yeah. That's why I'm giving you here too. Let's see if I can put this into the chat. You'll get it later by email, of course, but I'll put it in the chat for now. You have the opportunity to sign up here as well. I'll put that in there, then you have it. And you see, when you go to the registration, it's a form where you say, hey, the information is on there, what your price is for a private individual. If you do it as a company, then it's a bit more expensive. Ultimately, you can write it off. Then, of course, it's cheaper for you again. Then it would be last name, your phone number, email. Yes, I want to sign up for the 6 week get free seminar. If you say, hey, I want to, but I still have a few questions, then you can click here and say, hey, I'd like to be contacted. I've also put my WhatsApp number in here for you. Then we can WhatsApp or talk on the phone again. And I'll get to that later. If you want to come along to the Mallorca retreat, for example, or say, hey, I want one-on-one coaching, then of course you have the option here too. Or you want another lecture in your company, then you can check that too. But basically, if you look at it via this link, you have the possibility to register in the next few days to say, hey, the 6 week program, I'm going through with it. Whether it's a small addiction, a medium-sized addiction, or a large addiction, except for drug addiction, you can list yourself here. And we'll go through these 6 modules in these 6 weeks and just see what happens in your life, just as it has happened in the lives of others. The super gigantic thing is I've packed some more bonuses in here for the first 5 people who sign up. The Happiness Mind program that I have running, that's a non-stopping evergreen concept. I've been doing this for years, every Wednesday evening as well. You get that included for 3 months. It's included now, otherwise it's not. But since it's my program, you can also take advantage of it if you'd like. It's included as a bonus for the first 5 people who sign up. Then I've included 28 online training videos. That's super important because the 6 modules are good. The 28 online training modules go into all areas or various areas of your life and really clean things up. We want to have it properly cleaned up so that nothing can flare up again and then fall on bad soil and create an environment that wouldn't be good. It's like a real broom that cleans up in various areas of your life. You get that as well. And then we have a 1 week Mallorca retreat here. I'll be in Mallorca myself on the 24th until the 31st of May. And the regular price is 4,200. But if you say, hey, I'd like to join this program for 3,497, then you get the Mallorca retreat even cheaper. You have the opportunity to be part of it there too. And something very, very special that many people appreciate if you want it is a one-on-one purpose call, as I call it, 35 minutes, where we go specifically into the one-on-one phase. Buckle up because it's always very intense. Then you have another 35 minutes with me. And here too, the first 5 get this bonus. So you see, I've put together a big, comprehensive, very special program for you because I said, hey, everyone should be able to do this. Everyone should be able to afford it. If you say, hey, I'd really love to do it, but I don't know how I can manage it, talk to people. People are often willing to lend you something if you were to borrow it. Some people say, well, I'll buy a TV, I'll buy this. I can certainly afford that too. You have to decide that. I can't tell you. But I just want to sincerely wish it for everyone out there, for each and every person, everyone, to truly make it possible for everyone, no matter who they are, to achieve and experience this incredibly beautiful and precious freedom. That's why I'm turning the chat back on now so you can chat. And you can also type your questions into the chat if you have any right now, or you can grab the microphone and ask questions. If they are very personal questions, of course, then I would suggest we do that in a one-on-one call or via WhatsApp, because as you can imagine, I can't really address private topics so deeply here in the group. But if you say, hey, I have some questions, or you want to know a bit more about the program, or maybe you are interested in learning about this or that, you now have the opportunity right now for about 5 to 10 minutes to ask any questions you might have. I'll be very happy to address them. And Michael is already asking the first question here, whether I'll send today's slides. So what I'm going to send you is the recording from today. Yes, because then you'll have the recording and the slides included. I won't be giving out my actual program as such, but you'll have it there as well. Do you have any more questions for me where I can help you, even addressing personal things like, hey, what does the 6-week program look like? Or what happens here? Or what happens there? Ask your questions either in the chat, or you're also welcome to briefly turn on your microphone and ask the question. I'm very happy to do that. For the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes at most, you've all been very, very brave anyway. Thank you for the precious time and the valuable time you've taken for this topic. How do I become free? Get free. Your path out of any addiction. Yes, I wish you the same, Julia. It's nice that you were here. It was good to see you after a long time. All the best and hopefully see you soon. So now it's my drink break. Michael, I'm very pleased. It's great that you're here and that you found it interesting and educational. That's always cool. And how can I support a person so that they realize they have an addiction problem? Wow, that's super difficult. In a Christian context, I'd almost answer that we're unfortunately not the Holy Spirit, or luckily not the Holy Spirit. That's the task of the Holy Spirit in Christian circles, to show the person that he or she has a problem. As humans, when we try it, it usually backfires. So there's not much you can do. If you were a believer, you could, of course, pray for this person, no question. Um, that's probably the best and strongest thing, and waiting for the right moment. Because even people who maybe don't want to know they're addicted, sometimes have weak moments and open up. First, there's a real struggle, and it's loud and strong and bah, etc., right? But then comes the moment, the window, maybe only 5 minutes, half an hour, half a day, half an evening, whatever, where they're completely open. And if someone calls you, then if someone wants a conversation with you, if someone wants to go for a walk with you, then I wouldn't say no. And I say, I'm ready for you. I'm here for you, right? I had someone who was in Salzburg and he called me and I said, where are you? He said, in Salzburg. Then I knew exactly. And that was a moment where I thought to myself, if I don't get in the car right now, I don't know if I'll ever see him again. And so I went to Salzburg, so to speak, on the off chance. But it was the most important night of his life because otherwise he really would have taken his own life. But we initiated something else, namely the path to freedom. And that's why we humans are here to do good, right? To be there for people when they need us. We can never force anyone. So the coaching principle is always I can only help you if you want me to. Yeah. So if your partner wants it, a female partner wants it, it doesn't work. Your parents, your children should, it doesn't work. You really have to want it. And as soon as you actually want it, I can, let's say, usually help you further. Okay, so a very difficult topic, Doris. What you've brought up here, asked in the chat, being there. So the answer would first be to be there, wait, be attentive when the window is open, the door is open, lovingly, never with pressure, never. In the program, well, I personally never work with pressure, not even in the 6-week module, never. Never. Never work with pressure, never. Yes, so always wait, be there, and then hopefully find the right words. Sebastian asks, I would be happy if you could get in touch with me for a private follow-up question. Thanks for your webinar and have a nice evening. I wish you the same, dear Sebastian. Just WhatsApp me. Ideally, if you have WhatsApp, otherwise Telegram works for me too, and then I'll be happy to get back to you, Sebastian, or we can definitely talk sometime. Good. Do you have any more questions? Where do I get the number? I can write it in here for you just to make things easier, but alternatively, it's also in the email if you need to check it there. Here comes my WhatsApp number. And it should also be in the email. We'll send you the recording and the link to the 6-week module as well. And that's really cool. Use this 6-week module so that you say, hey, I'm in and I want to carry it out. I want to change my life. Yes, Sebastian, perfect. Don't let this opportunity in 2026 pass you by. We still have many other topics that we will look at. But if we don't, so to speak, work through this properly now, many other topics won't be of any use. And that's why I'm looking at the chat again. Do you have any more questions that you would like to ask via microphone or via chat? Then you can all write a bit more in the chat, namely, how did you find the evening? What are your highlights? What are you taking away from the presentation tonight? Write it in a bit so that I can see, and then I would say you've earned the rest of your evening. But I'll take another look. What are you taking away? Because that is something very, very important. Now, take for your life for this evening what was important to you, what resonated with you. Yes, Sabine, you really struggled there. I saw that. Thank you, Maria. She was co-assisting here, and I saw ding, 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 ding. Sabine out, Sabine in, Sabine out, Sabine in. You really struggled with the internet. Sorry that it didn't work out so well, but there will be a recording. Everyone who registered here for the seminar will be sent the recording via email. Katja, you're always my highlight. Haha, hopeful, highly motivated, always welcoming. Thank you as well. Katja, it's nice that you were there and followed the mission, I mean the lecture, so intently. That's always a motivation for me too. When I see a nod or people are following along, they understand exactly, they know what I'm talking about, they feel it. Katja, thank you. Michael, all questions answered. Super clearly structured, easy to understand, and emotionally engaging. I'm glad to hear that, Michael. What about the others? What are your takeaways? Yes, Dorit. The key sentence for me tonight was addiction begins where freedom ends. Thank you. That was, from what I gathered, very interesting. I definitely need a talk. I'd love to, Sabine, get in touch with me. Sebastian, I think you have the right approach to helping addicts. It's unfortunately not found often. Yes, I believe everyone tries to do their best in some way. Everyone grows with their experience. Everyone grows with their training. Everyone grows with their knowledge. And I'm really glad that I can have such a great tool. You need a bit of intuition, faith. I think so too. And it's probably the right mix that makes the difference. Yes, Dorit is also asking the question, is there a way for people who haven't registered to get the recording? So what you can do is you can simply pass on the link from today's recording to others. That is the same link where you all registered together for this session. And even if there are people who decide to sign up afterwards, even if they were not able to be here with us tonight, they will still receive the link from us as well. This way, everyone who is interested, whether they attended live or not, will have access to the recording. So don't just pass on the link like that, but pass on the link for tonight's registration, and we will then send them the recording as well. It's not Rudolph. It doesn't depend on my own strength. Powerful sentence, Kris. Thank you, Rudolph. That is something very important, yes, because otherwise I despair in my distress, right? Do you have any more highlights or inputs that you're taking away with you? Some have already written, but where you say, wow, that was cool, that was great, that really spoke to me. Many of you were also taking notes, I saw. That was also awesome. Did you underline anything in bold? Exclamation marks? Laura writes, thank you very much, Kris, for this new program. What about dependency on sedatives and sleeping pills again? Is the program suitable for that? Well, sleeping pills, yes. With sedatives, it's really, really good if you consult a doctor accordingly and say, I'm doing a 6-week program. I'd like to be medically supervised by you. So that's always very, very important. And it's also extremely beneficial and very good if a doctor, a qualified medical professional, also supervises and carefully accompanies the whole process. And there's also an additional safeguard in place for the person who wants to become free from sedatives in 6 weeks, making sure that their journey is as safe and supported as possible. Anyone else have a highlight they're taking away? Sabine, I'll watch the recordings and get in touch via WhatsApp. Sabine, yes, looking forward to it, as the Americans say. Another highlight, anyone who is still typing and hasn't pressed enter yet? Yes, a thumbs up, very nice. I'm very happy. A thumbs up happened on camera. That was nice to see. Good. Then I'll say thank you. Thank you for your great attention. Thank you for your time. You've taken a good 2 hours for this very, very important topic in your life. I hope you'll tackle this well now, work through it again, maybe take a little more time with it, sleep on it if you need to, and maybe, just maybe, we'll see each other in the 6-week program. I'd be very happy if you join in, really sweep things clean, and start the new year well, very, very well and fresh. In that sense, I also thank Michael, but also everyone else who was here today. It's good to have you. Never lose courage, never lose hope. Stay brave, keep looking forward. There is hope, there are possibilities, there are tools. Use them. In that sense, I look forward to hearing from you again, receiving your messages, or perhaps seeing you in person. So, my dears, take care and see you soon. Bye, everyone.